How's everyone today? The information I'm going to share with you today, if you can do one thing with it, now we learned that this morning, and what is the one thing we need to be doing during this talk? Just move this over here a little bit. Paying attention. What's the word? Yeah, I heard it. Focus. Okay? So how many of you are great multitaskers in this room? So what did we learn this morning? Yeah, that we've got to really learn how to single task. Because one of the things that I do very well is get average producers to become top producers to get to the next level. And so some of the things I'm going to teach you, you may say, well, I already know that. But what's the key? Is the key knowledge? The key is what? Application of the knowledge, right? Because a lot of the stuff I'm going to teach you today, if you've been in business for a while, you've already heard this. It's not rocket science. The key is to take a few of the things I'm going to teach you and apply them. So how many takeaways do we want to have? See, I'm seeing how many people were listening this morning. Yeah, 2 to 4. And the reason we want 2 takeaways is because top producers will go somewhere and they'll get 1 or 2 takeaways, and what will they do? They'll implement it. Low and average producers, what? They have 100, and what do? They don't do anything because it's information overload. TMI, as Adam shared, too much information. So all I want you to do is I want you to create your $1 million nugget list, and then when you get done, I just want you to prioritize it. So I shared a story this morning, and for some of you who've already heard it, bear with me, but whenever I give a presentation, I always give it to my peers before I present it just to get feedback. And I had presented this, and one of the gentlemen who's an 80-year-old, he's been a world-class speaker for over 50 years. He got done and he said, it was a great presentation, but how dare you lie about on your bio? And I thought he was initially joking. I'm like, lie, and then it's like dead silence, and I'm like, he wasn't joking. He said, you said you closed up to 96% of your deals. And he says, I've been in business for 50 years, and I've known one person who's closed up to 96%. He actually closed 100%. And he was a mortician in Podunk, Iowa. And the reason he closed 100% was because there wasn't another mortician within 200 miles. So as I sat there, I thought, oh gosh, what do I do? And as I shared this morning, I kind of felt like a politician for a minute because I said, do I say something? Do I not? So I said, well, I didn't lie. I just didn't tell the full truth. It wasn't 96%. It was actually 100%. Now, by this time, the guy's like, and everyone's laughing because they're now laughing at him, which he didn't find very funny. He's like, well, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? It just so happened that the following week I was actually speaking in Podunk, Iowa, because I was on that sales caravan. So I said, if you really want to know, you can come learn, because we're going to be in Podunk, Iowa. But the reality of it is when some of you heard that on my bio, what did you say? Yeah, right. I mean, who closes 100% of their deals, right? I mean, seriously, how many people close 100% of their deals? You don't. Early in my career, I didn't either. It wasn't until I learned the secret, and the secret is getting on a direct flight. So I spoke at one of the NAIFA meetings, and a gentleman came up and spoke. And the interesting thing that I shared in my presentation was that the deals that I closed that got me into the 100% closing club were not small deals. So these weren't like $2,000 commissions. These were 5 and 6 figures. So 5 figures being in the tens of thousands, and 6 figures being in the 100,000, the largest one being well over $500,000. And he said, he goes, I heard you speak, and I've got to do something. I'm on a sinking ship. Now, you'll know what that means in a minute. And I said, well, tell me a little bit about it. Well, he sounded desperate. His voice sounded desperate. It turned out he had at one point in his career been a top producer, top 5% of his company, but for the last 2.5 years, he had been struggling, and he was actually considering getting out of the business. I just don't think I'm inclined to do it anymore. And what we found is that, do the things that worked 20 years ago still work today? No. And the problem is a lot of people are on a sinking ship because they're not growing. We're either on a direct flight or we're on a sinking ship. And the reality of it is if we're on a sinking ship, one of the things that's the most important is that we've got to look at where we are and take action on getting somewhere. So the first thing I asked this gentleman is I said, why did it take you so long to do something? So one of the things I want to encourage you to do, and this is just a top producer trick, we have some of our clients that are not mega producers, meaning mega producers are where it's a combination of offices, and those people are obviously well into the 8 figures. But I'm talking about single producers that are doing $2 and $3 million a year in production. And my question is always, why do you have an advisor or a coach? And the common thing I always hear him say is that we are constantly investing in ourselves. Now, you could be investing in yourself by coming to these luncheons. You could be investing in a variety of ways. But the key is that top producers think differently than low and average. Low and average producers see things as expenses. Top advisors see them as investments. So when I asked him, why he was doing what he was doing and why he was not, hadn't changed anything sooner, he said, I just didn't know what to do. And so what he did is what most people do. What do you think he had been doing for the last 2.5 years? The same thing he'd been doing for the last 20 years, right? So what we've got to realize is that if we want something different, we've got to be willing to take the action. So today we're going to talk about the direct flight, the 7-step formula to creating your dream life and business. The materials, forms, and intellectual property are copywritten. All international copyrights are reserved. Now, only a CFP would have a disclosure at the beginning of a marketing thing, but I do sometimes talk about money, and because if you talk about anything that you need to consult with your own doctor or your own advisor, please do so. Okay, so I'm going to give you some insight that I've given hundreds of advisors, taking them from where they are to the next level. And then for some of you who want additional resources at the end, I'll give that to you. I encourage you to focus in on 2 takeaways. You're going to get a lot of information, 2 takeaways. And what's the most important thing about those takeaways? Is what? Action, that we implement them. All right, we're going to talk about understanding the formula. We're going to talk about the inner game, the game plan, the outer game, and then some additional resources. All right, so the formula includes an equation. Now, I encourage you to take notes because some of this stuff I'm going to go rather quickly. As people who heard me speak this morning, I do have a tendency of, I'm from South Dakota, and everyone's like, where in Jersey are you from? I'm like, what? Well, you speak so fast, you can't be from South Dakota. I just so happened to end in South Dakota. I shouldn't have, but. So it's IG plus GP plus OG, okay? Give you a chance to write that down. Your inner game plus your game plan and your outer game. So before I got into the 100% closing club, the first 5 years of my career was a challenge. I spent the vast majority of time where most advisors spend their time, which is what part of this equation? The outer game. It's all on tactics. It's all on action. What do you think 90% of the people that have phenomenal results in our mastermind community, where do you think they spend 90% of their time? Inner game. Now, the interesting thing is you can't abdicate the outer game. It's just that most people are so out of balance that typically they start out spending so much time on the inner game, and then what happens is they transform their outer game, they create their game plan, and the rest is history. The formula becomes a reality when we create a blueprint, and it consists of the same things, the inner game, the game plan, and the outer game. I guarantee you, if I went around here, there's about 90% of you, even if you do have your goals in writing, they're not properly stated. A lot of you probably have a plan that's gotten dust on it, and you don't follow it every day. Your business blueprint needs to be like your business Bible. It's got to be so closely monitored and managed that you know exactly what's working, what's not working, and more importantly, what you need to change or take action on. The formula requires that we either get on a direct flight or sinking ship. So I'll tell you a funny story. So we get a call maybe about a year ago, and this guy goes, hi, I just wanted to tell you, I've been on a sinking ship. I'm ready to get off it. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, I heard you speak at this event, and you talked about, advisors being on a sinking ship. So this is the analogy I give. If I was supposed to come and speak today, and I had been invited here, I talked to Cindy, and she said, come on, and so here I am. You guys are all here waiting for me, but I'm not here. So you say, Cindy, why don't you call her? She calls me, and I say I'm over in South Africa. Most of you would say, what are you doing in South Africa? Is there anyone that wouldn't wonder what I'm doing in South Africa? And I say, well, as soon as you booked me, I flew over to California, and then I got on a boat. I went over to Hawaii, spent a couple days there, and then I got over to Japan, and now I'm in South Africa. Well, when are you going to be there? I don't know, but I'm hurrying. Most people would say that's crazy, right? Well, everyone laughs. And everyone's like, well, that's just a dumb analogy. I can see some of your face. That's really dumb. Okay, how many people are doing that in their business? See, when it comes to something like that, it's obvious. And I give you that analogy because it's so obvious. The obvious thing is I'm in Arizona. I get on a direct flight and I come over here. And yet, how many people do that in their business? You say you're at point A, you want to get to point B, and yet you're not on a direct flight. The secret is we've got to choose. We're either on a sinking ship, which is the ultimate extreme, or we're on a direct flight. And one of the most important questions you can ask yourself every single day with every activity you're doing, is this a direct flight to where I want to go? Now, the first thing we've got to do is decide what we want, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But we've got to make sure we're on a direct flight. And the best news is you get to choose. It's not that hard. It's just a matter of doing it differently. Okay, so before we get started, everyone, oh, that's easy for you, Annette. You've been a top producer, But I always say, no matter how great your strategy, you have to look at the results. That's one of my favorite quotes by Winston Churchill. So I give you these to let you know. These Astrophies are NAIFA members. So 20% increase, 80%, 100% increase, biggest deal ever, $200,000 commission plus a $60,000 ongoing. $300,000 deal, first $100,000 month, that was a NAIFA member, and then another one, he had first $200,000 a month, followed by another $100,000 a month. So these aren't theory, this isn't like esoteric, these are hard facts of numbers. Increase in referrals by 400%, increase in assets under management, massive referrals, 1.2, 1.4, 3.2, $1 million roundtable, top producer meeting. I share this with you to say if you decide to take a direct flight, these are the results that are possible. And what I'm going to share with you today will get you there. And not to lose sight of other things. Some people don't want to increase their revenue. Some people want a better work-life balance. Some people want more energy. There's a lot of different things you may want. The point is that you take a direct flight to get them. I wasn't born financially free. In fact, out of college, I was broke. I was hired by my first millionaire at age 16, and I learned the power that, a lot of us focus so much in our business, becoming a multimillionaire, whatever your goal may be. Some of you probably can't even fathom that. But the reality of it is it's not so much what we create in our business, but what we create in our overall life. Now, that being said, I always laugh because when people find out where I am financially, I sometimes speak at churches, and what I find fascinating is people have a belief that you can't be spiritual and be financially free. And I would actually say the opposite's true, but that's a whole nother topic. But the interesting thing that I find is that a lot of people will say, well, a life with money will not bring you happiness. And they're right, it's not. But I've lived both sides of the equation, no money and money. And I will tell you, a life with money is a heck of a lot better than a life without money, especially if you have your values in line, if you've got your priorities in line. Obviously, if you were a jerk before you had money, you're going to become a bigger jerk once you have money. If you were a nice person before, seriously, people are always like, money changes you. I'm like, no, money makes you more of who you already were. So, let's just not get caught up on that, because a lot of times people, well, I don't want to be a top producer. Why do we become a top producer? Who is it about when we become a top producer? Is it about us? Yeah, somewhat. Is it about our family? Somewhat. Who's it really about, though? Yeah, the clients, the people who we change their lives. And when we understand that, we show up very differently. All right, but I also learned the power of creating a winning formula, and we all need one. We all have a formula. Does everyone understand that you have a formula you're operating on right now? Yeah. And what you have to look at is that formula producing your desired results? If it is, then what should you do? Keep doing it. Yeah, do more of it. The problem is when you have the formula you're using and it's not producing the desired results and you keep doing it. What does Einstein say that is? Insanity. All right, so I talked about the gentleman that I worked for. He had a phenomenal business life, tragedy, personal life, horrible. And so what I realized is that the formula, you cannot lose either side of the formula. So part of it is, are we in shape? Are we eating well? How do we eat? Are we exercising? How many people in here exercise every day? One of the most critical elements you need to do if you want more performance is watch what you're eating, cut out the sugar, cut out caffeine. Now, some of you say, cut out caffeine, I'd never have any energy. You cut out caffeine, you'll have 10 times more energy. I mean, we're addicted to the caffeine and we think we can't. And there's no doubt that it's really hard to cut it out. But you'll have 10 times more energy. I would have never believed that, but when I had my daughter, I gave up caffeine. And after the first effect where I thought I was going to die, I had 10 times more energy than I had before. I was like, this is unbelievable. But operating at peak performance, when do we exercise if we want to make that in our routine? First thing in the morning. 96% of all professional athletes exercise first thing in the morning. Absolutely critical. When do we do the activities, our high-value activities that we don't really like doing? Those warm calls, morning, first thing. Now, there are some programs out there that say, just do them on certain days. Now, I don't agree with that because this is what happens with advisors. It may work in other industries, not so much with advisors. So let's just say one of your high-value activities is to make 20 warm calls a day, okay? 20 warm calls. So what do you think happens if on Monday you don't make those? And then you have to make them on Tuesday. You know, Monday was so great because you didn't have to do the activities you don't want to do, that come Tuesday, what do you think happens? You don't want to do them. And the next thing you know, it's Thursday, and you're starting to try to make up for what you were supposed to do on Monday. We cannot do on Tuesday what needed to be done on Monday. That's one of the key elements of the formula. We have to do that. And some of you who have been in business a long time know that. The real benefit in all this is a life by design. You get to go skiing where you want. We spent the summer over in Europe. We go to Hawaii every year. That's us zip lining. Now, you know, I always say get out of your comfort zone. So my little boy, he's a rock climber. They both are, but he was a rock climber. He's a really good baseball player. Some of you had to listen to my stories this morning about him. He had to go zip lining. So I'm like, sure, I'm up for it until I got up there. Now, I thought, before that picture was taken, I looked like I'm smiling. I thought I was going to start crying. I was so scared. And the woman gets it on me. I'm like, okay, I'm not really analytical, but I want to know exactly how this is working, and how you guarantee me I'm not going to fall down there. So we did that, and then last summer we went again, and we did an entire day trip. But, you know, now I can flip upside down. But that first time, and, you know, sometimes it's about getting out of our comfort zone. So these are my three lovely children. My daughter's here. So, okay, I got to tell you a funny story. So my little son, you know, he just was a kind of an average baseball player, okay, but he has this dream he's going to be a major league baseball player. So the good news is he's got a mom that's a performance coach, so I have helped him a little bit. I will take a little credit for that. But they were playing the #1 team on Monday night. And obviously when I booked this, I did not realize we were going to be in playoffs, or I would not have come out on this day. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if they lose on Monday night, they played last night. I'm thinking, okay, I'll have to move my flight. What am I going to do? Well, we were going for a walk the night before, and I said, you know, I just want to remind you I'm going to be over in Vegas, so I'm going to be gone from, I'm going to, you know, be gone tomorrow night. And he goes, you're going to Las Vegas? Now, one of his goals in 2014 had been to come with me on a speaking presentation. So I said, what? You want to come to me? He goes, it's not fair. Paige, my daughter, who comes with me a lot, he goes, it's not fair. She gets to go. I want to go. And I'm like, seriously? You want to go? So I took him over to California. Now, you have to understand, we went and got the new suit. He was in Cloud 9. Everyone just loved him, and he was just in it. He goes, I want to go to Las Vegas. I go, why do you like that? I love Las Vegas. All the lights, all the action. So I did something that you're never supposed to do. I said, oh, really? He goes, Mom, if we win Monday night, I don't have to play Tuesday night. I can go to Vegas. Now, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, okay, he's focused on that. If I say, no, you can't go to Vegas, then his entire focus is going to be trying to convince me he's not going to be focused on winning the game. So I said, well, we'll talk about it. You know, I didn't say yes, I didn't say no, we'll talk about it. Well, they won, and I got in trouble on this because I said double overtime. People said it's not double overtime, it's double innings. 2 extra innings, we won by 1 point. A normal hour-and-a-half game took 3 hours, and they won by 1 point, which means they're playing tonight in the championship. But the reason I share that with you is because the focus. You know, his focus was on winning the game because what? Was it really winning the game? It was what? It was what he was going to get from winning the game. Now, what does that mean to you? When you focus in on consequences, there should be positive consequences you have and negative ones. I spoke at ASU on getting President Obama elected. Some of you are like, what? Never have her back. No, what we do is, and I find it fascinating about NAIFA members, what would it take for you to do your high-value activities? Well, if you knew you were going to write a check to President Obama, would you do them? And what do you think every person says to me? Absolutely, I would do anything. I would never write a check. And yet, do you know what we've found? We have found that, interesting enough, sometimes it's not the dollar amount or the actual event, it's the dollar amount. One of my peers does the same thing. He does a much bigger dollar amount, $1,000. You send me 3 $1,000 checks. If you don't do what you say you're going to do, he sends them into the Democratic Party. He has one gentleman who said, this is a true story. He was told he was going to have triple bypass if he didn't start exercising. So the agreement was he had to go to the gym 3 times a week. Talks to him in 2 weeks. I've only made it twice in the last 2 weeks. Oh, you're supposed to go 3 times. Yeah, I know. Sends the first check in. Well, once you get on a political organization's list, you're on everyone in the entire country. This guy is getting letters. He said he got like 10 letters asking for donations, thanking him for them. He was so mad. He goes, how dare you? And he goes, what do you mean, how dare you? You know what the agreement is. You didn't do what you said you were supposed to do. Blah, 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 blah. I don't want to hear it. You're either going to do it or you're not. Well, guess what? How many times do you think he missed it after that first $1,000 check? 0. The guy gets a letter from the guy's wife 6 months later and says, you saved my husband's life. He's lost 50 pounds. He's no longer has to have surgery. That's why we have to have focus and we have to have consequence. So needless to say, I'm going to have to come back to Vegas because now my son was so mad at me when I let him know he couldn't come. Like, my flight doesn't even get in time for you to be to the game on time, and if you're not there, how's that going to affect your team? Now, he's clearly an integral part of his team, but what do you think he said? I don't care. I want to go to Vegas. So, yeah, no, there's something about Vegas. Very powerful. All right, so let's look at the inner game. The first thing we got to do is decide. This is so simple, and I want you to write it down. This is something most people never do. Decide what you want. I mean, I can guarantee if I went around, what do you want? And it would change. And if I asked you in a different context, it would change. Most people, I say, well, how much money do you want to make? Well, how much do I want to make or how much is practical? I mean, did anyone fall into that practicality? So you've got to throw the beliefs that you have that are not serving you out the window. Practicality is why you're stuck where you are. You've got to look at what you want and then focus in on that. And once you do that, it activates a part of our brain scientists refer to as the reticular activity center, which draws us towards that goal. It's amazing, but deciding what you want, personally as well as professionally. All right, whether you're age 50 or 12. So Nicholas's batting point average last year was between .250 and .30, so he set a goal. He wanted to double that. It's currently .80. So what do you, I know, very impressive. In fact, I said to him, because I was interviewing him, now this is funny, so this is how my son thinks. This son is not motivated. He's motivated by figuring out how he can get the most by doing the least. So he's a master negotiator. So I was interviewing him because I said, you know, Nick, I want to get inside your head because I'm always helping producers that are, you know, already set in their ways. So if they understand that a 12-year-old can do this, they're going to think they can do it. So I'm interviewing him, and I get about halfway through the interview questions, and he says, you know, Mom, I'm happy to share this information to help your community, but I just want to be clear that if I'm helping them, I am going to be expected to be paid for my work. And I was like, oh, my God. So make a long story short, when he gets up to bat, the most common thing to hear is all the coaches are like, back up, because they know he's going to nail the ball. Or they say to the pitcher, you know what to do, you know what to do. And I said, Nick, how do you keep your composure? Meaning he's only struck out 3 times this entire season, 20 games. And, I mean, it's as a mother, it's unbelievable to watch him, especially the fact that, I mean, he's a good athlete, but he's not like some of the kids that just have been phenomenal. That's not him. He's very solid. But I said, Nick, help me understand that. And he said a couple things that I encourage you to take away. He said, one thing, I expanded my mindset. He said, I started thinking about what was possible. Now, granted, he probably hears me all the time saying that, but he goes, I just expanded it. What could be possible? And he said, and what I realized is that it was possible. Now, one of the things we did is we enrolled him with a coach who happens to be an assistant for the Padres. And this guy was right up my alley because Nicholas made his grade school team. So as a 6th grader, he made the JV team. Well, they had come to us and said no 6th graders would make it. So when I was talking to his coach, he said, you know, all these players that tried out are good, but he said what separates the kids that are good and the kids that are great is their mental mindset. And my son made some small comment like, oh yeah, my mom worked with me on that for 3 days. And he goes, well, what do you mean? And he didn't have any idea. He doesn't know what I do. And I said, well, I just worked on that video. The video you watch in the morning that sees yourself making the great sales presentation. Well, for him, it was seeing him hitting the ball. This guy had my son change 3 things. In fact, I had him do it 3 different times because I couldn't believe it. He took his foot and he moved it a 1/2 inch back. He had him get his position and he had him go down a 1/2 inch lower. The changes were minor. What do you think the changes you need to make are? See, most people think to have a quantum leap in their production, what? They're major. They're not. They're minor. And that's what I hope you walk away with. So this is a while ago, but this is him and this is his little brother. So all right, enough on my kids. All right, so 20 years of research, the biggest determinant of your success in my second book, Your Worth Barometer. It's a combination of your beliefs and your self-esteem. How do you improve it? You've got to remove level 3s from you got to become a level 3, remove level 1s. Ask what if. Todd Kelly doubled his revenue, and he said, the one thing I did is I just kept saying, what if? What if I did something different? We got to focus on what we want versus what we don't want, and we've got to write out our affirmative goals. I am or I active verb. Every one of your goals. So your income goal. What's your income goal for 2014? Okay, income goal for 2014 is $500,000. What's the problem with that? It doesn't get into our subconscious mind. I earn, write this down, I earn $500,000 in 2014 with ease. That's a perfect affirmative statement because it gets into our subconscious, it activates our reticular activity center. I am what? Either I am or I active verb. Make sure it's positive, make sure it's present tense. You start writing out your goals that way, you speak them, you read them, you say them. It's what I call the power of 7. And all of a sudden, you'll see that you're going to be achieving them. I am enough. If you have self-esteem issues, you don't feel you're enough, one of the best things you can do is say, I am enough. All right. So there's a variety of different success principles. We're going to talk about 4 of them today. Removing level 1s, attracting level 3s, your determining factor, and non-negotiables. Okay. So we first of all got to do is to get a winning attitude. We've got to focus on what we can do versus what we can't do, and we've got to choose how we're going to react. Now, there's another story. This is about my other son. So my other son's 10. He's a little bit more volatile than my older son. So it's kind of like, you know how you have that third child? If you would have had him number 1, you wouldn't have any more children. Now, I love my younger son to death, but I will just say if we would have had him first, we would probably have a single child. So he gets up to bat, and he's a good little athlete, but he just doesn't have the same focus as his brother. He hits a double. So for some of you who aren't baseball, a line drive right down center. It hits there. Unbelievable. He gets a double. He gets to second base. And the ump goes, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't give the pitcher the motion to pitch, so we have to do that over again. Now, as a parent, I would love to tell you I knew how my son would react, but I'm thinking, oh, my God, this is going to be ugly. I'm thinking my son's going to go back and start yelling at the ump, and he's going to probably get kicked out of the game. No, he gets up. He does it the exact same thing again. Now, I said to him in the car going home, I said, so what's this? He goes, I've done it before. I could do it again. He said, this was a story that actually my older son's coach told him. He said they interviewed Peyton Manning, and they said, are you nervous? The only people that get nervous are the people who are not prepared. And he said, I was prepared. I knew what I was doing, and I did it. See, what we've got to do, I get letters from top producers that say, when I go into sales presentation, it doesn't work out how I want it to, I get in such a bad funk. If we know what we're doing and we've mastered it, we don't let things like that phase us, whether we're 10 or we're 50. All right, we've got to eliminate level 1s. I'm going to go over this pretty fast, but level 1s are energy zappers. They complain. They're either victims in a lose-win or bullies, win-lose. They cannot get to a win-win. They have excuses. They gossip. They miss appointments. They will say mean things to hurt you. I hate life insurance agents. They just are toxic people. They complain. They lack focus. They destroy your closing ratios. So if you have people that are missing appointments, that aren't taking you seriously, you need to get them out of your life. That's one of the easiest ways to get on a direct flight. Level 2s, you got to follow up with them. Timing's off. And then level 3s are your ideal client. One of the keys on level 2s, and this is where I have made a ton of money, is on follow-up. Most people make the sale. The reason, talk about why they're trying to do level commissions, the gentleman spoke about, it's for this reason, is because what happens is people go sell somebody something up front and never service them. And that's the biggest issue of consumer groups, is that you go sell them something, you make a big commission, and then you're not paid. The reason they want to levelize it is so that if you're not servicing that person and following up, the person that is getting paid and they don't have to get a new product. So if we don't want that to occur, what do we need to do? Yeah, start servicing our existing clients. All right. Non-negotiables. You've got to identify the activities that you need to do to achieve your goal. Determine how much time it's going to take, if it's exercise, whatever it is, and then add that into your calendar. And then identify the consequences. We talked about that, positive and negative. All right, game plan. You're either chasing clients or you're attracting them. Most advisors are out chasing clients, meaning you're looking for them. Top producers and people who follow the formula attract clients. They have more clients than they could ever work with. Now, some of you are going, she's talking a foreign language. It's just, again, it's your mindset. It's a belief of what you've done. You want clients to come to you. Niche marketing is one of the easiest ways for that to happen, and it fills your funnel up faster than anything you can do. In fact, Joel Bayer, he's in Southern California. He started focusing on niche marketing. That guy gets more $1 million referrals than any advisor I've known in my entire career. 1.2, 1.4, 1.8. Every time I talk to him, it's a bigger one. And he said, it took me 4 years, 5 years to hear you say 2 to 4 strategies. I was trying to do everything. I started doing a few things, and that's the power of it. All right, Socrates' wisdom. Most advisors spend 80% of their time researching products. People who follow the formula spend 80% of their time what? Researching information about their ideal client. This is $1 million nugget. You sit down and find out what your client wants. See, and people that were in the morning, and you can answer this, but when people are spending 80% of their time becoming product experts, what is that? Yeah, it's an excuse. Because when you're doing that, you're not doing the activity you need to that fills your funnel. The graveyard of failed financial advisors is filled with technical experts. It's not filled with marketing experts. Now, I'm not saying that you don't need to be competent, but what I'm saying is that every home office has somebody that's so competent on products, that's not your job. You've got to be finding out about your client, what they want, how they make decisions. That'll pay you back tenfold and it'll get you on a direct flight. Never assume, always ask. We've got to leverage, power our leverage. Most advisors work on a one-on-one model. I want you to work on a 1-on-20, 1-on-50. You know, if you're in front of 50 or 100 of your ideal clients, you don't care who says yes or no. All you're thinking about is, how can I serve those who have raised their hand? It's amazing. All right, outer game. Once you've got to put the formula together, so you've got to bring it all together. You've got to spend your time on high-value activities. If you look at average producers, they spend their day, they get in at 8, they leave at 6. What did you get done? That's a good question. High-value activities is a key, and if you look at top producers, they're spending their time on those critical high-value activities and income-producing activities, 60 to 80% of their day. Most of you, I guarantee, if you're not at your desired result, are between 20 and 40%, and we have done massive studies on this. You just got to do it, and the power of it is then you can end up like Todd Kay, who has your best income year ever. All right, so CE, I've given you some ideas. How many takeaways do I want you to take from today? 2. So if I see you and you come up talk to me, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what are your 2 takeaways? But I'm going to give you some additional insight. So what we offer is a strategy session. The reason we offer a strategy session is because it gives us insight where you are and where we should direct you on what you should do. Help you create that 1, 2, 3-step plan. Gives you some additional lead generation and referrals. Normally it's $500. Today it's either $67 or $97. And 100% money back. If you have a strategy session with me or somebody on my team and you're not completely satisfied, we give you your money back. But that's not all. You're going to get the formula. There's 3 elements of the formula, the inner game. So every one of these strategies you're going to get the insight on. And I'm not going to go over all of them because there's so many of them. But basically, every element of your inner game. You're going to get the game plan, your business blueprint, your getting rich in your niche market, your 1, 2, 3-page plan, massive lead generation, social media. How many people are effectively using social media? I tell you, that is going to be something that in the future you're going to have to master, especially if you're targeting women or couples. The outer game, consistent, massive right action, secrets on getting your schedule, time management, scripting and selling, activity, high values, income producing, all of that. So I'm going to give you this, and then I'm going to have this woman come up front. You're going to be my volunteer. Yeah, because you're the one that asked me. All right, so there's $1,158 bonuses, either $67 or $97. If you bought either one of our bonuses this morning, you can upgrade, and Paige can tell you. It's a $30 upgrade if you want the 2 from the morning. If you want all the bonuses, then it's $50. So Paige can help you. But what I'm going to do in closing, Paige can hand out, for some of you who want to take advantage of this offer, you can. But the question came up this morning, and this is something that's on your outer game, and it's something that I want you guys to master. When you meet with somebody, and who are you targeting, some business owners?
I do, yes.
Okay, so we're going to say business owners. She targets business owners, and so I'm going to give you a takeaway as far as scripting. So what I want you to do is forget what you learned this morning and say what you typically say. So, Dorothy, it's nice to meet you.
Same here, Annette.
Yeah, so Dorothy, what do you do?
I work with business owners, helping them to enhance their benefits.
Okay, I work with business owners, enhance their benefits. So we have to understand two things when we're mastering the art of language. We're in the language business. Some of you think you're in the insurance business. You're not. You're in the language business and the relationship business. So if two best friends are sitting next to each other and one says to the other one, John, you've sure put on a little bit of weight, what will John say to Harry, his best friend? Yeah, you're right. Screw you. I can take you on any day. Now, if two women are sitting next to each other and a best friend says, Sally, you've gained some weight, what is Sally going to do? After she hits her and goes and calls every other friend and says, she's turned into one of those you-know-whats, never speak to her again. We have default courses. If I say to you, you're very defensive, you're going to go somewhere. If I say, you're a really nice guy, you're going to go somewhere, right? We say something to somebody and they have a built-in default course of where they go. Does everyone understand that? It's critical to understand in this business. So when I asked her what she did, she said, I blah, 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 blah. Doesn't matter what she says, where did I go? Who knows? We don't know where I went because why? I can go anywhere. Now, if instead I said to her, or she said to me, do you know how most small business owners are focused in on running their business, and the last thing they want to have to do is worry about their benefits, if they're paying too much in taxes, if the plan they've created is going to get them from point A to point B? Now what happens to my default course? We've altered it. I can't go anywhere because all of a sudden now she's activated a part in my brain that takes my default course. What do I have to do unless I'm an absolute moron? Respond, because I've activated it. So unless a person is seriously mentally challenged, they're going to respond. Now, what word you want to hear is, so how do you do that? If you're hearing people ask you how you do that, you're now in a conversation. Now, the second biggest mistake people make, other than I blah, 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 is you then say, I would love to share that with you, but
Let's take some time to sit down and talk about it.
now's not the appropriate time. You don't want to do it in a social environment. Let's schedule a time next week, get it on our calendars, and we'll talk about it then. So that help you? So I gave that this morning. That's huge, but that's the power of scripting. So on that note, Paige can get you information, and what I can do is probably field maybe one or two questions. So ask away. Everyone's afraid. Go ahead, ask. No questions? Everyone's afraid out. So two takeaways, and tell two takeaways. What are your two takeaways? You. Two takeaways, yep.
The conversational introduction that you just
Conversational introduction, that's huge.
and all the materials that I purchased from you that I'll
Okay.
listen to later.
Okay, all the materials you purchase and you listen to later. So what do I want you to do when you listen to those materials? Do I want you to listen to them and go, oh, that's good information? What do I want you to do with them? Apply them. Okay. Two takeaways. Qualifying people. We talked about this in the morning. About ever meet with people that aren't qualified, that's a problem. You've got to be in front of people that are pre-qualified. Spend less time on product knowledge. That's huge. Okay, so somebody that wasn't in the morning session. Do you have two takeaways? Yeah. Two things you're going to take action on. No. She's saying about all the things she did wrong. Well, you know, if I would have known this 20 years ago, I'd be writing the Billionaire series, not the Millionaire series. So I'm with you on that. But you can still apply that in your life. So that's huge. Two takeaways? Oh, my God, she's calling. Stop drinking caffeine. That's huge. All right, do you have an accountability partner that's going to hold you to it? Okay, and do you know who you're going to write your check to if you break it? Okay, so he holds the checks, and you got to do it. Anything else? So you think about it. Anyone else? Two takeaways? High dollar. Okay, high value activities, huge. 80% of your time. Stay focused. So on that note, I'm going to have one person tell me, how do you learn to stay focused? Do you learn to focus when you're in the midst of chaos? When do you learn how to focus? This is something we talked about this morning. There's a part of your brain that is completely dedicated to focus. The reason focus breathing, silent meditation, certain activities teach you how to focus, and you do that when you don't need it. Because what you'll find is that if you train yourself to do it when you're in the complete calm, you can bring yourself to laser point focused. In fact, I can remember before I had children, and I remember thinking that the moms that would just ignore their kids and be so focused were terrible. You learn how to focus, you don't even hear that. Now, sometimes that's a problem, but the reality of it is you've got to be able to focus, and that's the power of it. So on that note, anyone that wants additional information can see Paige, and if you have some specific questions, you can come and ask me. Thank you so much.